This is Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from An Expat's Russia, where we answer your questions about what it's like to live, work, and travel in Russia. Hey guys, I'm happy to join you today. We have our first guest on the show, Steve Krisel from the Get Up and Get Out podcast. He's a good friend of ours, and he was kind enough to join us. He's joining us from Moscow, and we're going to get into life in Russia and anything that comes up, I guess. We're all married to Russian women. What's some of the fun things that we can, I guess, not having our wives around, complain about?
Yeah, it's sticking out. Well, thank you first of all for inviting me on to your awesome podcast. Love what you guys are doing, and we've known each other for years, so I'm really happy to be a part of this. Let's jump into the question. One of the things that maybe a little gripe, I guess we're starting off with gripes already. It's a little early.
Let's talk about cultural differences. Like what kind of surprised you the most? Maybe something you didn't notice until you got married, because I think those are kind of the things that people don't think about.
Everything changed after you got married. No, actually, surprisingly, no. One of the things that we really enjoyed, and I don't know if this is because I've never been married before, so I don't have any other experiences.
None of us do.
We had guys' night and girls' night, and we would never speak about where we went. We would only say we went out with the guys or we went out with the girls. It was always on a Friday night, once or twice a month. And did you have a good time? Yeah, great, awesome. Life carries on. It's cool. And then my friends left the country.
That's interesting, because I think in my case, I was just talking about this to somebody else. They were asking about, do Russian women get jealous?
Oh my gosh.
He was, this guy was with a Russian girl, and he spoke to this stranger and this other girl at a store or something, and it just came out to the Russian girl said, "You shouldn't flirt in front of me," and he was saying, "Well, this isn't flirting." And I was in many times I would be in that situation, and Oksana would say, she has more experience in being in the US, so she would kind of jokingly say, like, you can't talk to girls or something like that. And I'm like, what, you get jealous? So I've seen this several times where Russian women can sometimes be a little bit jealous.
Yeah, I think so. My wife is very good, Steve as well, but talking to a bunch of friends who have Russian wives, I think your experience is very, very far from the average. Maybe I'm wrong here, I don't know. Russian women, let us know in the comments below if we're not onto something here, but I think in general, Russian women are extremely jealous. So, I don't know, I think you got a good one, Steve. That's most important.
That's true. That kind of surprised me when you said that. So,
yeah, I can't.
Yeah.
I honestly, it's hard for me to come up with a cultural difference. I mean, if I really think about it, sometimes I think, oh, maybe this or that, and then I think, no, that's not really a cultural difference. But I think maybe for someone who hasn't been around Russia at all, some of these things that we kind of just take for granted are actually pretty big cultural differences that people face.
I have one that I've noticed, actually, Matt. I wanted to ask you, and I haven't yet. So Oksana and I speak English. We both speak English and Russian fairly well. So we can carry on a conversation in either language. Steve, I think you speak mostly English, right?
Yeah.
And Matt, you speak mostly Russian.
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of... There's certainly times when I want to speak English. I just am tired. I don't want to even think in Russian. But
right.
Matt, tell us a little bit about how speaking in Russian in the US is like.
That's a good point. I will be honest, until we moved to Texas, it almost felt like it was a secret language. In the Washington, D.C. area, you never met anybody who spoke Russian. So you could just kind of, like, nobody understood what you were talking about, ever. But here in the Woodlands, Texas, where we live now, there are tons of Russians. Every day I go to the park, there's like a little Russian family playing or something, or, somebody playing in the park. I mean, what exactly do you mean?
I mean, like, does for us, when we were in the US, we didn't really, Oksana never had a goal to only speak English to improve her English so much. We just spoke whatever was easier or whatever we felt like. Some people, they go to the US and they're like, well, now you have to, learn English, or I don't know. So in your case, you continue speaking Russian, which, I don't know, I think some other people would say, let's focus on English to improve our English.
So here's the thing that I think a lot of people don't get, and I believe we talked about this in one of our other episodes. If we didn't, one of the hardest parts about language learning is if you have someone who speaks the other language. Like, let's say I'm in Russia, I'm trying to learn Russian, and I'm only speaking English with my wife.
I know where you're going with this.
You can never change the language. Like, once you create a relationship with someone, and this goes for friends, girlfriends, work relationships, once you create a relationship with someone in one language, it is very, very, very hard to change it to the other language. So I actually was on a call.
I generally agree with that, except if you are at similar levels.
Well, so we lived in Russia for 5 years. We are very different levels of, my wife speaks and can understand English. She can do whatever she needs to do in the United States, but she's not going to go and have a conversation about politics. Although I think that's maybe to her advantage.
I'll tell you what, I really actually agree with that statement, Matt, because my wife and I met when I introduced myself in English. And, I would say even from almost the very start, that is, kind of like saying, hey, this is how I communicate with you. And, over the years, I can tell you honestly that my wife has gotten kind of upset sometimes because she would say something to me, and it would be like one of those things where, like, she would tell you, like, directions or something to do. And if I didn't understand fully, and then that happened where, like, I didn't do the laundry properly or something like that, and because those instructions were given in Russian, she'd be like, that's it, like, and it's like one strike against you. And then you have multiple strikes over the years, and then it just becomes, you know what, I'll just speak to him in English because then I know for sure he's going to understand. and you lose a little bit of that trust of, like, is he going to understand? And you follow me, right? So,
right.
But we do speak Russian. I'd say probably maximum 20% over the week.
Yeah.
So,
well, okay. For example, my wife, when we came to the U.S., we had been speaking Russian between us for 5 years. It's very hard to just flip a switch. I was on a call the other day. We do career consulting calls at Expat, and I was on the phone with a guy from New Zealand, lives in Singapore, and he's looking to move to Russia. And he said, I'm going to move to Russia and I'm going to learn Russian within 9 months. And I said, okay, do you have a girlfriend? And he said, yeah. And I said, is she Russian? He said, yeah, that's one of the reasons I want to go to Russia. Anyway, what I was saying was that, I'm talking to this guy. He said he's got a girlfriend in Russia. One of the reasons he wants to move to Russia. And, I asked, what language do you speak with her? And he said, English. And I said, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but you're never going to learn Russian.
Not in 9 months.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
9 months.
You're never going to learn Russian in 9 months if you have an English-speaking girlfriend, because you're going to speak to her 40% of all the speech that you make in a day, and none of it's going to be in Russian. He's like, no. She promised me we're going to speak Russian when I'm in Russia. And I said, listen, when you get there and she tries to explain to you, this is, your example was great, Steve. She tries to tell you to do something in Russian you don't understand. Are you going to say, oh no, explain it in, an easier way so I can get this? You might do this the first few times, but I'm telling you, 5 times in, you're going to say, just tell me in English, we need to get this done. And then done. You've already ruined and you do that 10 times and then you're never moving back to Russian. You're never going to do it.
The reason is because a relationship is about, the communication is about like practical use. You need to get something out. The idea isn't just practicing a language. So when anything you're saying is not just for practice, it's going to be for a particular purpose. So that relationship is like, hey, what restaurant do we want to go to? I mean, you're not going to sit there and discuss it for 30 minutes in a language, just to practice.
Right.
So you're both hungry, you want to get going. That's true.
Yeah, because I'm a teacher, not an English. I guess since coming to Russia, I am an English teacher, but I'm a licensed professional teacher. My wife and I, we would have English lessons. We would literally sit down and devote 30 minutes, an hour, whatever, once or twice a week. And we would, she's like, I'm getting free lessons. Cool. Like the perks of being married to an American, or dating American actually at the time. That was worth it too. But it's just one piece of the pie, right? And I don't want to totally get off our topic here, but I think one of the quickest ways to learn any language, I roughly speak 4 languages, including English, Spanish, German, Russian being the other 3. I adopt the childlike motto of just looking at stuff, repeating stuff,
That's
making errors and mistakes. You're just trying, and the first year I moved here, I worked for a private family, and I came knowing nothing. I knew what I call movie Russian. It's like da, нет, до свидания. So that was it, right? And on the plane, I had a book. It was like, learn Russian fast. And I was like, great, I've got 9 hours. Let's try and bang this one out. I got there. I think I had memorized like 4 or 5 phrases. I was like, that's not even 1 an hour. Like, that's horrible. Like, I took that $10 book.
Plane and you forget it. You're like, dang it, 9 hours down the drain.
And then the guy at the passport control, all he says is "Dokumenty," and you're like, what? I don't understand what he's saying.
What is he trying to hit on me? What? No. Women. The topic before, like we were talking about, like cross-cultural differences and stuff like that. I did want to inject that, my wife has gotten a little more jealous over the years. Because as you guys are talking, and I'm like, no, she does. Like, okay, here's a funny one. I work at a school. There's a 6th grader that's got a huge crush on me, and she's like, I'll cut a woman. Who is she? And funny enough, this weekend on Saturday, the Laughs Continue boys, we went to a concert, a small little concert, like 60 people, and the student was there. I walk into the main lobby, I look to my right, and she's like right there, and she goes, and I'm like, I introduced my wife to her, and I'm like, and then we leave, and I tell her that's the woman. She's like, I'll be right back. I'm like, you will not. Like, no, that actually didn't happen. But you could see in her eyes that she was like, like a student, and I was just like, hold the phone there, okay? Let's just relax there. But yeah, she is a lot similar to a lot of the other Russian girls. But we still have this very, very big openness. So anyway. Next question.
Well, no, I think that's certainly possible. I wasn't trying to insinuate that you can't be open and honest with Russian women. I was just saying that most guys that I know complain about the jealousy stuff. And I think
they gotta stop complaining about it. They gotta enjoy that. your woman is jealous. Like that means that you are important
I mean,
to this.
to a degree, yes, I
Sure.
would agree with that. But
Well, she's
I
not.
think that I've heard some horror stories.
She's not from the Latino community. You want to hear horror stories?
Right, but are you
No.
giving? The question is, are you giving the girl or the woman a reason to be jealous? Right? I mean,
Come on,
to
gentlemen.
mistrust
Come
you
on.
or not?
Right. That's kind of what I was getting at. Is that
Come on, boys. Got to play nice when you're away from the wife. Right? Yeah, exactly. I totally agree.
Okay. Next question. Do your wives ever correct your Russian, and do you correct their English and they get kind of defensive about it?
Okay, so this is a great question. My wife will never really correct my Russian, but whenever she does, she'll say, "You said it wrong the last 10 times." I'm like, "Well, you didn't even tell me." That's how it always happens. She will just correct me once I've made the mistake 10 times, and then she will accentuate the fact that I've made the mistake 10 times. And I say, "How was I supposed to know?" And then I make some little tiny correction to her English. She's like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah." So,
I'm cringing
I'm
right
guessing
now.
by the way you phrased the question that's your experience too, Marcus, but I don't know.
Oh,
I would say that it's very similar. I will correct her English. Her English is very good. The number one mistake she makes is so Russian has a few vowels, right? Vowel sounds, and English has more. And so
Right.
the distinction between I or like she gets that mixed up sometimes when she's speaking quickly. And so I'll say, "Let's have a treat." She could say, "Let's have a treat," and not realize she made that mistake. And I'll say, and I'll just kind of over exaggerate, of course, just being playful. And that's what bothers her. Not that I correct her, it's just that I kind of draw it out. And then she'll
you should
say,
try
well,
the serious tone. You should go serious. Be like, "That's wrong."
she would say, well, I don't correct your Russian. And I say, "I wish you did." So I have a similar situation. I wish she would correct me earlier, right, before I make the same mistake 10 times, whereas I correct her, the first or second time.
Yeah, I actually need to start taking notes, Marcus, on times that I make mistakes in Russian and my wife says something. I think that would be an interesting video for us to do in the future.
I've marked the last month 17 times. you might actually get, but okay, so my personal history with that is, I mean, okay, we only speak Russian about 20% of the time, but when she does correct me on my Russian, which is rare, and I have experienced some of these things, it's like, you say it wrong quite often. But she doesn't really do. She's actually really quite forgiving with the mistakes, because maybe I've rubbed off on her a little bit, and she or she's just naturally like this. But she lets a lot of it go. She lets a lot of the mistakes go because it's about the communication. But
those are the kinds of mistakes that she understands, totally doesn't bother her, and she lets it go.
No, yeah,
I think the mistakes that my wife will correct if I make them in Russian are not critical to understanding. Does that make sense? Like, they never influence they have this saying in Russian, это режет уши. And I hate that saying.
Cuts your ear.
Yeah. And so basically, my wife will only correct me if she thinks that it just sounds absolutely terrible in Russian, what I'm saying.
Sure.
Which is not that beneficial.
Both of you guys have, I would assume, at least in the language world, a B2 or higher understanding. Matt, you went to university, so you have like a C1 and a half, I don't know, level, right? Marcus, you also have a really high Russian ability.
Yeah, I took the actual test at a advanced level.
Sure. So both of you guys are pretty advanced. So.
Steve, you speak Russian really well as well, especially compared to any other foreigners. I mean, that's what we should do. A video all in Russian.
We should. But the thing is that you're not making common mistakes. Your mistakes will almost always be of some sort of maybe case error or some sort of slang error. So your errors are quite delicate, more specific. But that doesn't take away from the fact that she's going to harp on it when you've cut her ear 10 times and she's like, you said it wrong 10 times. That's my limit. My limit's 10.
I just thought it was kind of funny. It's always funny that she'll bring it up and she'll say, you made that mistake X number of times. And I say, really? I don't even remember saying that, that many times. And she's like, no, you did.
She's like, I counted. I got a question for you guys, actually, and I don't know if you'll keep it in, but I've got a question for you guys. What is there anything that you're missing now that you've switched gears and are currently residing outside of Russia? Are you missing anything, maybe from either your relationship, something from Russia itself? Just anything, really.
The thing that I miss the most about Russia is Russian people and the friends that I had in Russia. And that applies to Russians just as much as it applies to expats that were good friends of mine, like yourself, Steve. Not coming back to the United States after having lived abroad for a long time gives you a very different outlook on the way things work in your home country. I think anybody who's lived abroad and returned can say that. What is the saying? What is reverse culture shock?
Reverse, yeah, sure, yeah.
Reverse
it's
culture shock is definitely a thing.
Yeah.
But in any case, I think just the people. One of the things that's kind of difficult when you come back to the U.S. Is that most people in the U.S. are very superficial, but they go out of their way to talk to you. And at first, after being in Russia where nobody talks to you, I'm talking like on the street, I'm talking about strangers, I'm not talking about good friends. When you come back to the US after having been in Russia and no one ever, talks to you or says anything to you on the street, you come back here, and I remember very vividly when we came back, we were just walking around the store and I sneezed and some guy comes up and just says, "Bless you, I hope you have a great day." And
no way.
Russia, yeah, coming from Russia, what the heck is this? You think it's, and just the other day I was walking on the street and a girl walked by and she says, "Excuse me." I mean, she was not even within 5 feet of me, she just like has to go out of her way to say, "Excuse me, sorry." Like, well, no need to say sorry. And I was at the grocery store the other day. I was going to pick up a mango and there was a woman, she was not even in my way. She was putting mangoes down on the shelf. And, I went to pick one up and she says, I'm sorry, I'm in your way. I'm almost done. I said, "Stop." I literally made this woman's day. I said, "Stop." I said, "You're not in my way. You're just doing your job." And she's like, no, I'm sorry. I said, no. We Americans, we say sorry way too much. I was like, you're not in my way. Have a great day. And she just looked at me like, wow, nobody ever, said anything like that. But all of these little things. But then if we want to talk about friends in Russia, I think when you're an expat in Russia, you become kind of like a Russian to some degree. So you adopt a lot of the cultural traits. And one of the things that I just loved about Russia, and I mentioned this on a number of our videos, is just the people, like how nice people are. And again, I'm not talking about people on the street. I'm talking about friends. I'm talking about, people at work, whatever. Just like, it's very hard to put into words, actually. I'd be interested to hear what you think, Steve, since you still live that every day. But like the interactions with people are much more personable in Russia.
Anyway, so like you feel like you're becoming Russian. That's what you said.
Yeah.
And a big part of me, and I didn't realize, it's really weird. I didn't realize it until I went home a year and a half ago, just before COVID kicked in. And one of my brothers said, like, "You changed." And it, like, literally, like, and it didn't sound like a good thing. And, I became a lot harsher, and a lot of my family knows me as a very loving, very soft, very flexible guy. And, I was just like, yeah, that's not funny. You know, like, and I never caught it. I never even, I was just like, you changed, whatever, getting a beer, right? You know, whatever it was. But when I came back, I started doing some self-analysis, and I'm like, yeah, like I'm kind of adopting a lot of these things. Like, absolutely. Like, if you never left, you know, your home country where everybody's sorry and everybody's in everybody's way and everybody's like trying their best to not anger people. I've got my 5-foot body window mirror space thing, and here you're rubbing, like, some guy pushed me like a couple months ago, and I was like, what the F? And he heard me in English, and then he wants to fight me because he just wanted to get on the train, and my personal space was being violated.
Yeah, this is a good one. I've been in that exact same position many times.
I'm like, this guy wants to fight. I was like, just because he heard the F-bomb. He heard the F-bomb, so immediately he thought it was a personal attack. And maybe this guy had a bad day. Maybe this guy had a you know, I don't know. But yeah, like, personal space is at a premium. I mean, we're talking about a city of probably what, almost 20 million. I mean, if we count the real actual amount of people that are here, it's well above 14, 15 million.
Right.
So yeah, like, it's like if I lived in New York City or any other major city, you're going to have a slight little attitude because, you know, you got to be there 5 minutes ago. Everything's a rush. But you still, you know, it's still nice. I still look at Moscow at some places where I go to, you know, shop for food. People are still nice. If I ask them, hey, can you help me with this? More often than not, they're going to help you.
I just wanted to point out something that Steve said. I would say generally when you first go to Russia, you look at Russian culture and you're like, this is so weird. But then as time goes on, your kind of perspective changed and you're like, oh, that makes sense now. You know, that I see it from the other, you know, perspective, how people do it. And then when you go back, you leave Russia, you're thinking, well, this is how it was done in Russia, and these are the things that I agree with how it's done. And now you go back to your home country or a different country and you're thinking, why don't we do it like this again? You know, so it's this kind of long process of you're first surprised at the culture, then you kind of get used to it and you start understanding why it's done that way. Then when you go back, you start looking at your own culture and thinking, why don't we do it like this? You know? Yeah. And a good example that you brought up, Steve, is when you're in the metro or a crowded place. I went from the same exact reaction where I would say, you know, kind of, what's going on? Why do you keep pushing me? To by the time I was, you know, leaving Russia, I was, you know, bumped and people stepped on my foot, and I was just, in my head, I'm thinking, what do I expect in a huge city like this?
Right.
If I'm in the metro, of course I'm going to be bumped, and I'm not mad that nobody's saying sorry, you know, sorry this, sorry that. And of course you'll find people that say, oh, извините, пожалуйста, you know, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. But in general, when it's packed like that, you're thinking, of course you're going to hit each other, you know, elbow each other or bump shoulders or whatever, and nobody's saying sorry every 5 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's kind of one very clear distinction that I came out after living in Russia. If you're in that kind of situations, it's inevitable that would happen. And another one that I want to mention before I forgot was one thing I miss a lot is if I'm on a bus and somebody sits next to me. In America, even I'm just kind of that person. Even if somebody sat next to me before I went to Russia, I didn't particularly want to start up this whole conversation. I'd just say, you know, out of politeness, I felt like if they say, hey, where are you from? I would have to kind of ask them about themselves. And even though I didn't really want to engage in the conversation, but when I went to Russia...
Are you talking about like an intercity bus, like just going a couple stops? Or are you talking about...
Any situation, you're sitting next to a stranger and it's awkward to have silence in the US.
Yeah,
It's awkward just to sit
It's
there
awkward.
for, especially one good example is if you're going from, if it's like where I studied in Utah, it was a 45-minute bus ride to Salt Lake. Could you imagine sitting right next to somebody for 45 minutes and not say a word? In Russia, it's fine, right? You sit on a plane, you sit on a bus, you sit on the metro, you don't say anything, and it's not rude. It's not
Right.
I just like that because that's something I miss, because I kind of just wanted to be, in my own thoughts, and I'm thinking about something else. I didn't want to have this like obligation to carry on this conversation with the person I'd never see again. So that's kind of some weird, strange thing that I actually took to liking when I was in Russia.
Everybody, I hope you enjoyed the conversation today with Steve. We will definitely have Steve back on in the future. This is just part one. If you have questions that you want us to discuss in the next episode, let us know in the comments below. See you next time. And so, Michelle, come on! This was Ask an Expat with Marcus and Matt from An Expat's Russia. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have a question about Russia, let us know in the comments, and we'll answer it in another video.